Looking for the latest comic book to add to your collection? How about the last card for that Magic the Gathering Commander deck? Well, the comic book store's got you covered. Shop online at comicbookstore.tcgplayerpro.com or come in person at 30 North Main Street, Glassboro, New Jersey. Hey pizza people, welcome back. Hollywood Pizza here, and we've got a pretty familiar deck. We played this before on the channel, but we're back at it again with some Mono Green Stompy. Can't keep me away from it. So recently there's been a few updates to essentially what the optimal build has somewhat become here. The versions lately that Alth, MTG, if no one knows who that is, definitely go give them a check out. They definitely got some awesome videos on their channel, and they're usually like #1 mythic or, you know, kind of in that top 10 range, and have contributed quite a bit of deck lists here recently to the latter. But this one specifically is a little bit of a combination between theirs and another streamer, Rap Solo. Essentially, I took some ideas from both and kind of like mashed them together a little bit. Most of the time nowadays, the green decks have been playing like 4 Henge, kind of playing a little bit of a package where you have the 8 mana creatures, since Elvish Mystic came in with the Explorer Anthology, and essentially using these on turn 1 to ramp into turn 2 Ronus, Lovestruck Beast, Steel Leaf Champion, Mammoth if you can play a land, and then landing the Henge down on turn 3, and then kind of just gaining a ton of value as the game keeps progressing from there, especially if you're able to play a collected company. So let's go over the deck list here in terms of what numbers we're playing of each card. So to start off with, we do have 8 of the 1-drop mana creatures, 1 mana 1/1s. They tap for a green, 4 Land Wars, 4 Mystics. We have 3 Primal Might here, but essentially we know Primal Might can kind of be a game ender. It's just an X spell, so it can be 1 mana or even bigger. Essentially gives a target creature control +X/+X until end of turn, then it fights up to 1 creature you don't control, and it's a sorcery. Really powerful card. One of the best green removal spells pretty much ever printed. Definitely helps get rid of anything that's a problem or is in the way, and then can help end the game when you have a ton of mana from either the Henge or just a bunch of mana laying around. In our 2-drop slot, we've got 4 Scavenging Ooze and 4 Werewolf Pack Leader. The Pack Leader, we know, essentially can be kind of just like a straight up beatdown threat, 2 mana 3/3 whenever it attacks. As long as you attack with total power 6 or greater this turn, you get to draw a card. And then for 4 mana, green, 3 colorless, it gets, it turns into a 5/3 with trample that isn't a human. So yeah, this card's pretty strong as always. Essentially kind of just helps bridge the gap between, you know, if you don't have any of these 1-drops, essentially kind of helps bridge the gap and kind of get you to your later game plan while also being a solidified threat and card advantage. Scavenging Ooze, on the other hand, can be a solidified threat as well, but most of the time you're actually just going to use this to hate out the graveyard, considering there's a ton of graveyard decks out there from Grease Fang to Cat Oven. Any of those strategies get hosed pretty hard by the Ooze. So you kind of want, in those specific strategies, you want to play these strategically rather than kind of just like throwing them out for like a Fatal Push or a Stomp. But overall, Scooz has just been great. As you know, the game progresses, it's just only going to get bigger. It's great in aggro matchups, mid-range matchups, just a really solid 2-drop overall. Our 3-drops here, as I stated earlier, get us to our great Henge. We have Lovestruck Beast, which essentially can be a 2-for-1. On the front side, we have Heart's Desire for a green, makes a 1/1 human creature token. And then for 3 mana, you do get the 5/5 that can't attack unless you control a 1/1 creature. We have Ronus the Indomitable, 3 mana 5/5, Death Touch Indestructible. Can't attack or block unless you control another creature power 4 or greater. And then you can also give another creature +2/+0 and trample until end of turn for 2 colorless and a green. Ronus is just one of the most powerful cards in the deck easily, and it helps get you to your great Henge. Kazandu Mammoth, 2 green and a colorless for a 3/3. Whenever a land comes into play under your control, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Another great card that just can help smooth your draws out by being a land, or also get to your powerhouse cards. Steel Leaf Champion, just a solid card overall. 3 green for a 5/4, can't be blocked by creatures. Power 2 or less, just helps get in there with that pseudo unblockability and just great stats overall. For Collected Company, Uh, 4 mana, instant. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. Put 2 creature cards, mana value 3 or less from among them on the battlefield. The rest on the bottom. Essentially, this card is just one of your really powerful engines to help beat a lot more of the mid-range strategy. Specifically, like, let's say you're trying to beat red-black mid-range, then Collected Company is definitely the type of card that you're going to want to be seeing in that matchup. And also our Great Henge, which we've been talking about quite a bit here. 7 colorless, 2 green, legendary artifact costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Tap it to add 2 green and gain 2 life, and whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under control, it gets a +1/+1 counter, and you get to draw a card. Just a super powerful card overall. Essentially, the deck's kind of like leaning super heavily towards it. And in our mana base here, we have a few special lands outside of our 14 forests. We have 2 Boseiju, who endures, kind of helps destroy opposing henges. The Fable of the Mirror Breaker, anything like that. 2 Haship Oasis to help get a little bit of that late game damage through. Let's say we want to put that on our Steel Leaf champion or maybe pump up a creature additionally that we've already given trample to. And then we also have 2 Lair of the Hydra, which as always having some creature lands around, especially one that can be as huge as the amount of mana that you have, can be very, very useful against specific strategies like control. In our sideboard here we have 3 Heroic Interventions to essentially help against anything that's like a board wipe or targeted removal. 2 Crawl Harpooners against anything that's like a mono blue spirit deck, or Angels, anything essentially that has flying. 3 Outland Liberators to help against anything that has artifacts, enchantments, and sometimes you may even want to slide it in there considering it's a little bit more of a cheaper threat and better than the Mystics and Llanowar Elves against, let's say, like control or mid-range strategies. It's just really good overall. 2 Shaper Sanctuaries to help against anything that's targeted removal like red-black mid-range. 2 Unlicensed Hearse, essentially kind of helping against anything that's like a graveyard strategy or maybe even grinding out as it can just keep growing. 2 Shifting Ceratops to help against the blue strategies like Spirits deck or even just like control in general, as you can just give it haste, and against like Spirits it's just really good because it has protection, and you can just give it reach. Essentially they can't really deal with this card overall. And the additional problem might to just play the full playset here, kind of helping to make sure that we have answers for anything like a specific threat that we're really trying to deal with. But overall, this deck's been great. It got me to Diamond pretty quickly. I definitely say that this deck is going to get you to Mythic. I've played it in the past, and it's just been one of the best decks in the format ever since Explorer came out. And the addition of Eldritch Mystic from the anthology has definitely helped kind of smooth the deck out and turn it into something different, where before, let's say instead of the henges, you'd be playing some more of like extra beat down strategies, but this is a lot cleaner and kind of just a lot more streamlined, and I've definitely been enjoying it myself. So let's go ahead and jump into the games. And we're going to jump right into some games here with some Mono Green. Going to try to run over our opponents here with some big beefy threats. This hand's actually somewhat decent. It's not anything too crazy. My main issue with it would be that there's 2 Ronus. I think we can afford to take a mulligan. It seems fine. Like, we have some plays, but it's mostly like just these, which is okay. I'm trying to think whether or not this really is worth keeping, mostly because even if we have the second Ronus, it's fine. Maybe if they Thought Seize us, but then we're really hoping that our opponent's playing like a specific kind of deck. I think I'm just going to take the mulligan here. Yeah, this is a lot weaker, but I'm not going to go down any more cards. I think we'll keep this either way. Quite a bit weaker, but I think it was worth the mulligan, mostly because, you know, we want to have like a decent start with this deck. Getting stuck with like an extra Ronus in hand isn't really going to do much. Opponent is also taking a mulligan down to 5 here. Looks like they could be the Boros Aggro deck that we actually just recently got a video on the channel here. Yep, and it is a Virtuoso. So let's get this Mystic down. Mostly trying to get Ronus and Mammoth. Maybe something that permanently gives Ronus the ability to block. Yep, just going to pump that up to pretty big here. Paying life. We might just take the damage. Okay, 10th district. So it's going to be 8. We could block here. That's fine. We'll take the 2. Save ourselves some life here. Yep. We're at 18. I think we're just going to have to play the Ronus and pass it back. We have a collected company on the following turn, so there's a potential that we might be able to block their creatures. From having played this deck recently, they could have a God's Willing, which does give them protection from green, so they could just come in for lethal next turn. We're already staring down 10 damage here. Yep, just going to take the 10, go down to 8. Could end up having like a follow-up creature, I believe. Another Virtuoso, they do not. And we're just going to pass it back with this Coco. Hopefully hitting some cards we can use to block. Either way, even if we play the Mammoth, we can't block with the Ronus. So the Coco still gives us the best chance of hitting the cards that we need. Alright, opponent with 4 lands here, and we got a Feather coming down. Seems pretty good. Most lists don't play Feather, at least recently. And let's try to do a Coco here. Let's see if they have the God's Willing or Protection Spell. And it looks like they do, so fortunately we just lose the game there. So kind of a little bit of like a weaker keep there. A bit rough, but I think that we still had to do it. I mean, the Primal Might would have been good, so I'm not sure. I know that we want to bring in the 4th here. And maybe even cut like a Mystic and a Llanowar, bring in a Liberator. We almost want some graveyard hate here. Let's see here. But it's just a replacement effect, so we actually can't do anything about that specifically. Bring in an intervention just in case. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. I know that their deck can be quite aggressive quite quickly. Okay, gonna be on the play, and unfortunately we do have to mulligan this hand. This hand's a little bit better. I think we do have to put the Coco back, which is a little bit awkward, but at the same time, we need to keep as many threats as possible. And it's looking like we're just going to have to play this Mammoth as well on turn 2, tapped. A Love Struck, then maybe hit the Coco here. Okay, favorite Hoplite. Yep, just going to play the Mammoth tapped. So unfortunately, could have used the Primal Might, but it also stops like our tempo here. Okay, Soul Scar. We can still kill this later if need be. With a Love Struck Beast, that's just like a lot bigger. Player Forest that we drew, and we'll just play the Beast now. Hope that they don't have any way to remove it. Reckless Rage is a lot more dangerous now, considering that they have a Soulscar Mage in play, so it deals damage and -1/-1 counters instead. It looks like the opponent's actually just going for a redraw here, which is quite interesting. They're not choosing to use that as like a combat effect. Okay, looks like they're going to target the Hoplite here. Yep, Ancestral Anger. So right now it's a 4/4 with Trample. We're going to have to take that damage, I think. Coming in with the Soulscar Mage. Let's block the Mage. Take the 4. We have a Collected Company here. Steel Leaf Champion. Could Primal Might plus the Steel Leaf. I have a feeling that they have like a protection spell here though, which is why they pass back with 2 mana. Could maybe be like a Sajiri Shelter. There's definitely a stop as well. Okay, so we're kind of almost just hoping that they maybe try to tap out, be too aggressive. Then we can collect a company into potentially removal spell. Okay, Homestead Courage. It's going to be pretty big. Okay, they're going to come in here. I think we still block the Soul Scar Mage. Okay, they do have the Reckless Rage. So either way, the beast is just going to die. We're going to take 8 here. That's fine. We have to kind of take it. We're almost hoping to hit like a 5-powered creature, so that way we can maybe play a Henge into the Primal Might. Okay, Beast and a Llanowar Elf's just going to have to do right now. Untap into another Beast. So the Hoplight's just getting to be ridiculously huge here. Can make this a 9 to try to fight it. But that might not end very well. Steel Leaf. We're gonna have to make some blocks or just at least try to kill one of their creatures here. I think that we just go for killing the Soulscar Mage. Because the token from the Lovestruck Beast can still block. Obviously, if they have like an Ancestral Anger, it's going to be kind of rough, but it's going to be something we can manage. We'll play the other Beast as well, so that way we have 2 pretty decently sized threats that, if we just need to soak up all the trample damage, we can. I think we'll also still play this as a land. We mostly just want to have as many resources as possible here at this point. Mostly looking for the Henge, because then we can start gaining some life and redrawing some cards. Scavenging Ooze wouldn't necessarily be bad either. Okay, they have another Virtuoso, 2 cards left in hand. So we're mostly just looking for like some of our power draws here. And we'll see if they have the Invigorated Rage or Invigorated Rampage. Okay, we just hit a forest. Nothing too impressive. We'll play Champion. And I think we still just have to pass here, just in case. We're almost to the point where we could double block, but yeah, there's the Gods Willing Up. So that is good game there, unfortunately. So yeah, they kind of just have such a quick start on us. We weren't really able to get our game plan going either, but we'll see how the rest of our matches go. Stomping down on our opponents here with Mono Green. And we're going to be on the play. And the hand's actually pretty decent. We can definitely keep it. We've got some good lands that come into play untapped. And then essentially 2, 3, or the Kazandu Mammoth maybe on turn 3 instead. Gonna start off with the Lair here, pass it back. Potentially get to a point where maybe we draw some cards off the pack leader. Looks like we're up against Mono Blue here. So we definitely want to be as fast as we can be. Looks like they might have Curious Obsession, almost look like. They did point to it. Okay. And they're going to bounce the pack leader, come in for 1. And we keep drawing Forest, which isn't bad. I think we just play the Steel Leaf here. It's just a better threat. It's what we'd rather have. Can essentially make it like a 4-turn clock. It makes them almost have to have another answer right now. If they do, then that's fine. We can just replay it. And then we still just have 3 threats in our hand, and the Oasis can also pump up the Champion. The Lair of the Hydra is a card as well. Okay, Shacklegeist isn't bad. Maybe they just hold up their cards now. Yep. So they might end up tapping down the Steel Leaf here. And we're completely okay with that. We're just going to try to resolve this Collected Company right now while they're tapped out. They actually let it happen, which is pretty surprising. And we'll just resolve this Coco here. They can tap down one of those creatures if it has like reach or anything like that, but we're not really too worried about it. We'll get another pack leader, and we'll actually get another mammoth down as well. So we still have some pretty sizable threats in play in our hand, and essentially being up ahead on board. They can play some more spirits here to potentially try to tap down our creatures, which would be a good game plan, but then, you know, we're just going to keep resolving some 3/3s that turn into 5/5s here eventually. So they may end up just passing, maybe having a rattle chains. Okay, upkeep, stop. I think they're just going to tap down the pack leader because it draws us a card, but Steel Leaf is pretty threatening. Especially considering that right now they can't block it. It looks like they might just have a bounce spell, maybe. Okay, yep, it's the Shacklegeist. That's fine. And they still have 1 mana open, so there is a chance they could have like a Fading Hope, maybe. We're just going to make them have it. Going to come in for 8, draw a card. Doesn't look like they do. And they could just block our 5/5 here, save themselves some life, but they're actually just going to take all of it here in the face. We'll play a Mammoth. And it doesn't look like they have a counter spell. These cards are just going right through, no stops. So we have a pretty sizable board. Mono Blue's not really known for having any sweepers. So feeling pretty good in the position we're in. Yep, I'm going to go ahead and packs it up. We had a land even for our Mammoths. We'll bring in the 2 Shifting Ceratops, the 2 Harpooners, the Primal Might. We can essentially cut a Mammoth or 2. Maybe even the Llanowar Elves and the Mystic, just because they're not as powerful as they could be. Let's see, if we cut the Mammoth, so we actually are going to be a little bit slower on some lands. So maybe we go Ooze, cut a Llanowar Elf, keep 1 Mammoth extra, and we try something like this. So that way we're not necessarily like drawing some dead cards later. Like, yeah, Mono Mammoth is pretty cool, but, you know, like, is it going to resolve? Are we going to be too behind? Like, we're on the draw this time, and we still want to make sure that we have a really fast start. Like, Mammoth's okay because it's going to deal a consistent stream of damage, and a lot of the time, like, our creatures are just bigger than theirs, so... Okay. Let's hope that we get a good draw here. That's pretty decent. I think that we can actually keep it. Most of the time they don't have interaction for the Mystic. If they do, then they just tap out on their turn, and then if we draw like an untapped source, we can play the pack leader. If not, then we're looking at potentially trying to slam down this Henge into a pack leader. I think that we might want to play the pack leader on turn 2, though. It just mostly depends what our opponent does here. This is also only instants and sorceries, so we're not really too threatened by it. Opponent tapping out, so we're really hoping to hit an untapped land to play the Steel Leaf. We did not, so we're going to have to play tap land and one of these pack leaders, which evens it up like a little bit considering the pack leader is a 3/3. It also means that our opponent could be more likely to keep back some of their spirits to tap our creatures down. Okay, they're actually going to get aggressive with this Curious Obsession, so... and a Witness Protection. Okay, so it turns our creature into a legitimate business person. And a 1/1, we'll go down to 14. If we draw a land, we can resolve this Coco, and we do. So we're just going to try to go for it here, try to hit some big beefy cards. They are going to have to sacrifice their Mausoleum Wanderer for it. We're okay with that. Come in for 1. Don't really have another option here. We could have gone for the Steel Leaf into the Henge, but I think it's okay getting rid of one of their additional threats, so that way we can kind of slow down the clock on our end. We're taking like quite a bit of damage here. It also depends on if they tap out now as well. But they do not. We have a Ceratops that could essentially gain reach eventually. I think we just play that. Can't be countered. Pro blue. Gonna take another hit from the Shacklegeist, but essentially they can't interact with this card. So we could pretty much be in like the position to block their cards for the rest of the game. Okay, Brazen Borrower, sure. We're gonna take quite a bit of damage here though. Yep, have to attack. Can't really block with it. So I still think it's okay to have gotten rid of the Wander. Obviously, it tapped us out and used one of our better cards, but I still feel like we're in pretty good position here. Okay, Phantom. Gonna take 7, go down to 4. They have 1 mana available, so they could have a counterspell for us. More than likely, I'd say. There's a stop here. So they could also just have another bounce spell, maybe even. Don't think we can resolve the Henge now just because they have 1 blue open. We want to keep up enough mana for the Ceratops, but we do die to their other 2 cards. We kind of like almost do have to jam it and just hope. Either way, we're still going to end up losing to their flyers. We can block the Shacklegeist, but it's just not going to be enough. So it actually ends up resolving here. We can go up to 6. I think we just pass. And then we end up blocking their Brazen Borrower. Or maybe even the Shacklegeist at this point. Looks like we probably has to be the Shacklegeist. We're going to go up to 6. Okay, what do they got here? Yeah, they can't tap this down, can't interact with it, so... Opponent's going to come in with everyone here. We go up to 6. That's still 6, so we kind of actually have to block their biggest card, unfortunately. Either way, we block here and still take 6. Yeah, either way, we still lose. So kind of a tough situation. I mean, we just maybe need another Ceratops or like a removal spell in between. I think we keep it where it's at, though. Like, obviously them having the Wander was really good, but I think we just had to keep fighting through their cards. Like, it definitely saved us to the point where we were almost able to get our game plan. Even like a Scavenging Ooze, something like that, might have been able to help in between, considering that we were losing a couple creatures in between. But, I don't know. We're going to be on the play this time, so that's going to help a bit. This hand is a little bit rough, but I think it's keepable. We just don't really lose our mana creatures that often, so we know that we can try to just have like a super speedy start. Like if we're able to get this Ronus on the battlefield, then like our opponent's going to have a harder time essentially with letting us resolve most of our other cards. Okay, Wander. And we don't hit an untapped land, but we do get the Werewolf Pack Leader down on the battlefield. Obviously, we need to make sure that we hold up mana for the Wander, depending on what our opponent does here as well. They could end up having like a Curious Obsession. Or maybe even a Shacklegeist again. We've been seeing that quite a bit here. Okay, gonna take the 1. So, are they trying to outrace us? Maybe a Rattle Chains here. Okay, we do hit our land. I think that we just want to attack, though. At least put the option on the opponent here to actually react to what we're going to do. And then if need be, we can try to slam this Coco here. It's not necessarily going to work either way because we have the Wander, so we're better off playing like the Ronus and the Mystic. So let's try this first. See if that resolves. If it does, then we'll have the Mystic as like a backup plan. Yep, I saw the Ether Gust. I think that we actually put that on top. It's a pretty good threat. And we get to play another Mystic, so that way we're going to be able to Coco here on the following turn. Unless they... Okay, so they are going to go for this play. Just going to draw them some cards. No other land, though. So I think, yeah, we're just going to go for the Ronus here. That's going to resolve. Scavenging Ooze is going to resolve. Attack for 3, put our opponent at 14. And we just have like a pretty sizable board here. We didn't really need this Collected Company per se. Like, it's going to be nice, but I think with what we have on the battlefield, we're looking pretty decent. Opponent does hit their third land drop. There's no creatures in the graveyard for the Ooze to eat, but it's still a threat. Okay, Supreme Phantom. And they're going to hit us for 4, go down to 13. So opponent's still trying to keep up the tempo here. Wander is a 3/3 as well. So we need to pump one of our cards up here. Let's just pump up the Ooze. Let's go to combat. Attack with just our biggest cards. We actually want to play this pack leader, second main phase. And we'll see how our opponent blocks. This is quite a big chunk of damage here. So they're just going to take 7, go down to half their life total maybe. Do they have a Fading Hope? Been kind of expecting it. Okay, just going straight to damage, that's fine. And we'll play the pack leader. If they have a counterspell for this, that's okay, but yep. Pack leader is still just going to go through, and now they just have a 2/2 Wander. If they play another Phantom or 2, I mean, we're just not going to die. We're at 13 life, so I think that we're pretty safe right now. Can't really count this deck out, though. It can deal quite a bit of damage if it definitely gets going, but yep, going to come in for 3. So, I mean, you know, they're tapping their last blocker down. This is their combat phase. Going to draw a couple cards, maybe a couple blockers, but Ronus does give trample as well. And we're also going to get a couple fresh draws from these pack leaders, and you know these Land of Werewolves are going to come in. The Mystic. Going to try to just come in for as much damage as possible, yep. So my opponent was trying to dig out of it, but, I mean, in that situation, they just needed a lot more mana to actually be able to do that, so we were able to take down that match. Playing some more mono green here. See if we can keep it going. Yeah, we can keep this. Pretty good hand. And we'll pass it back. Gonna get a pack leader or potentially this Ooze down. And then followed up with the Steel Leaf Champion. Looks like our opponent has a Thoughtseize for us, though. So it's either the Henge or the Pack Leader. Pack Leader's pretty good, like, tempo play, essentially. Can play this Ooze, but it puts us in a pretty rough predicament, considering they can just stomp or choose to kill it with, like, a Fatal Push, maybe. But we're going to put it Fate into our opponent's hands here, and see if they have it, and they actually do not. So our Ooze is going to survive for now. I think that we can definitely just come in for some damage here, and if they want to trade, they can trade. If not, then we just play Ronus into Henge. Yep, pretty happy with that either way. Either way, the Ooze is going to die to it. So if we can get in for some free 2 damage, we get in for some free 2 damage. If they have another Thoughtseize, they take the Henge, but then we have Steel Leaf and Ronus just starts attacking them. So we're going to go ahead and play Henge here. And play Mystic, get a redraw. And I think we just have to pass back. Can't really play any of our other spells here. Okay. Yep, we're just going to play our Steel Leaf here. It's a little bit safe, at least from like a Heartless Sack, but obviously they have a Blood Token, which could just Fatal Push the Steel Leaf champion. I think we'll still play the Mystic here first. Mostly trying to dig for like another card that's pretty decently sized, so that way the rodents can actually keep punching in. Looks like they're just going to go for the redraw now, maybe? Yep. The Crocs in the graveyard. A few cards away from that. And they do have the Fatal Push here. That's fine. So we'll get a redraw. Hopefully try to hit something pretty decent here. We hit a Primal Might. So we can Primal Might the underdog. They have a push. It just feels really rough. If not, we put them at 6. We could also still just only swing with the Ronus. I feel like that might end up being a little bit better. If we play the land, we could pump up the Mystic, come in with that. But I still actually like having the Lair as like an additional creature, I think. But there isn't a way for us to come in unless we actually pump this, which is kind of a bit annoying. I think we still have to do it. I think I'd rather just get aggressive here than hold back. They have a kill spell, they have a kill spell. Yep, just another push, sure. That's fine. We still have like pretty good board presence here. Kalitas, we can just kill that with either creature. If they attack, we take it. We're at 24, not really any threat there. That's a bit painful, but still manageable here. So I think either way we want to play the Lair this time. Let's say we use this. How much is it? So turn it up to 5. Pump with Ronus isn't enough. We would need one more mana to be able to kill both of these, or at least fight through this, essentially without... Pump here. Yeah, I mean, I think either way it's got to be Pump the Mystic. It sucks, though, because we won't be able to come in for Trample. I'm not really too happy about that. 2, 3, 4. Yeah. We just have to do it for all of our mana. 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that's fine. Gain 3. Probably block the Mystic, go down to 11. I don't see them taking the 8. Seems like quite a lot. They're going to get Croxa down. We're going to lose this. But then we have Ronus that's just Death Touch indestructible. And we also have a Lair of the Hydra that's going to be bigger than the Croxa if they tap out. So they definitely have to block the Mystic. They'll go down to 11. And then on the following turn, we can use our Lair of the Hydra, just get it to be like pretty decently sized. They're definitely like wondering whether or not the 3 damage from the underdog might be worth it here. or just to keep it around. I mean, this is 13. They're going to go down to 6. That's quite a lot. They're definitely in chump block mode right now. They're actually going to use their last timeout here. Not actually even sure if they're still in the game because we haven't seen them highlight any cards in play at all. Okay, so they're still here. They took it. They'll untap, get a draw. If they Croxa, that's 3 damage. We're losing a forest. Still make the lair a 7/7 to go over the top next turn. Mystic can be pumped twice. If we don't lose the land, it could be pumped up 3 times. They have cards left, though, is the problem. So they could have a push plus a removal spell on the Mystic here. Yep, we're just going to go for it. We're going to pump up the Mystic here. Try to go to combat. See if they just have a response here. They have a Bedevil. Do they have a push? That is the question. They're at 6. Yeah. Can also do it for 5. Yeah, we have to do it for 5. Yep. So bedevil that. And no push, so getting in with both creatures here. They have the push now. Then they still have to block the Ronus. Did they have it the whole time and let us go to combat? Doesn't look like it. Okay, gonna go down to 1. So, like I said, if they tap out for the Crocs, either way we have the lair here, and we're mostly just hoping to draw any creature because we can kind of keep our engine going forward. 2 cards left. They have a Hive as well that can block. So they're passing back, potentially means that they have an answer. I'm just going to play this Forest and play the Ooze down. And then try to pump that up to 4/4, essentially making the Ronus being able to attack. And then as a backup plan, we would have the lair, and we're even going to maybe draw another creature off of that Scavenging Ooze. So against Rakdos here, our Llanowar Elves and our Mystics are pretty weak against them. Liberator is okay, can kill like a Fable if need be, but we almost want the Hearse too, just because it's still a grindy card. There's like quite a few different cards that we want here. We also want to make sure that our creature count is high enough for the Cocos to still count. Like if we're cutting, you know, all the Llanowar Elves, then we're putting ourselves at like 22 creatures, and that's not going to be enough. I think that we can cut down to 4 of these. Let's start off with that. And I think that we want the Hearse and the Unlicensed. Or excuse me, the Hearse and the Outland Liberator. That leaves us at 28 creatures. Still a bit sketchy. Yeah, Harpooner's a card. It can attack. A lot better than like a Llanowar Elf can, but there's still not like great draws later in the game either way. And we still have to find room for these. But Coco is like one of our best cards. It's kind of like a little bit awkward here. Like, do we want the Heroics? It seems decent. It's a bit awkward. If we get rid of all these, we can replace them with these. That's not going to be enough. Let's try a combination like this. I feel like I don't even want to keep these Mystics, but like our creature count's just going to be so low for the Cocos. Maybe even cut a Henge, considering they probably are bringing in some kind of removal for it. We can keep this hand. Thoughtseize is definitely disruptive against this, but that was actually like one of our best draws there outright, just because the Sanctuary means that no matter what they kill, we just get more cards back. I think here we just had to discard the land. Hope to draw our fourth eventually again. Mystic. It's pretty good. We actually get to play two things on turn 2, and on top of that, if one of them dies, we'll get a redraw, which gets us closer to the Henge eventually. You know, Thoughtseize or some other cards might be a little bit annoying, but Devil. Yep, so they're going to do it on the Mystic. We'll draw a pack leader. That's fine. I think we still play Beast. Just has the best stats overall to be able to block, attack well. Looking for a fourth land here to try to resolve this Henge, but we do not find it. Let's actually go to combat. If our opponent allows us, looks like they just have a Stomp here. So we'll get a redraw. We do hit a land, but it comes into play tapped, unfortunately. No attack either. So it could end up being Steel Leaf here to make sure that we do resolve the Henge on the following turn. We don't just want to... We could play like the Ooze, but it almost leaves us open to like another removal spell. 2 cards in the graveyard from our opponent. We'd almost be hoping that they tap out for the Bone Crusher on the following turn. We're going to play this Lair now. So maybe next turn we have Henge. The opponent's low on cards. I mean, let's say one of their cards is a land. They only really have 2 cards left, and they're not close to this Croxa yet. We have a chance of, like, out-valuing them. I think that they're maybe, like, weighing whether or not they want to just kill this Lovestruck Beast now. Like, we're not attacking, but it is still a thought. I mean, it gives us even more of a chance to draw more untapped lands, which we could then play 2 spells. Let's play this. And yeah, I think we still just play the Steel Leaf. Like, there's definitely a stop, so they have something. It could be a Fatal Push, but they can't use it like that. That's also like a potential. Yeah, still 3 cards. They had another land. Trespasser is a decent threat, but not the end-all. We hit a Mammoth, so yeah, we're just going to Henge here. And then play a pack leader. Come in with our Steel Leaf champion. I mean, they gotta have like an Abrade or something here. Yep. So the pack leader's not gonna be any bigger, but it's not really a big deal. Coming in for 5. They're not closer to that. I think we still play this as a tap land. It's a little bit awkward because obviously we always want to have the most creatures against a removal heavy deck, but this Promomite should be able to help us here. And let's see, what do we want to do here? So yeah, we actually could, let's see, we could go do it for 0. And then play the Ooze second main phase because we want to get rid of this Croxa eventually. Let's do it like this. If they want to kill the Lovestruck Beast, they can. Like, we'll still have 2 pretty decent attackers here. And we're going to get a redraw off the pack leader. It also means that we're not really, like, losing one of these cards to, like, a block. Like, if they want to block the pack leader, then that's fine. But we're going to get this Ooze down and try to eat most of their cards. Okay, Forest isn't the best draw, but still getting through the deck is good. And they are just going to chump block the Steel Leaf champion here. Go down to 12, I believe. Unless they have the push. Another Stomp will redraw into another Ooze. So, technically making them have to waste 2 cards here. And we'll use this on the Kroxa just to be safe. And then we'll also play another Ooze. So looking alright. We got some pretty decent bodies on the battlefield. Like the Oozes are going to get bigger. We're going to get another redraw off the pack leader. So kind of just had like a lot of value without needing a Collected Company. And they also even got rid of the Henge before we can even get one draw off of it. So that was mostly just like the power of what our creatures can do. Playing some more Mono Green, stomping them out here with some beefy threats. I think this hand's alright. We're really hoping to draw some lands in between here, but 1-drop, 2-drop, and then a couple removal spells in between seems pretty good. And if we do get this Love Struck Beast, then we're probably more likely going to get the Henge down as well. We have about like 2 or 3 draws before we're really in some serious trouble. Looks like our opponent may be playing a control deck or a combo deck of some sort, maybe. Maybe it could be like an old school Tainted Pack style deck. We'll see what they're up to this time. Okay, search for Escanta seems pretty good. We don't hit the land though. So we're forced to just attack. Pass it back. Opponent's gonna get a better look at some cards that they need here. Okay, they had a Fable Passage. And it looks like they just have... Oh, okay. Thought Erasure. We got 2 Henges. I mean, probably just take the Coco. Or maybe even to take a Primal Might if they're scared that we're going to kill one of their creatures. I mean, the redundancy of the Henge makes me think they'll just take the Collected Company. It's the next best card. Wow, they actually took one of the Henges, which is somewhat surprising. It potentially means that they have another way of getting rid of the other one from our hand, so... Even if we draw land for this Love Struck Beast, there's a pretty high chance that our Great Henge isn't going to stick. Still no 3rd land, but, you know, still 4 power on the board to be able to come in for some damage here. Get our opponent down to 11. The card that we're mostly trying to dodge here would be like a Languish type effect. Okay, gonna search. Looks like they're on the Sultai plan. E2 extension, Casualties of War. The deck's looking pretty good. They definitely have quite a bit of removal. See what they're up to now. They have 6 cards left. Definitely touching our creatures, so they gotta have something. Yep, Bloodchief's Thirst. And they didn't kill the Llanowar Elf, which makes me feel pretty decent. Try to get the Love Struck Beast down. It does resolve. Get in with the 1/1 token. Puts them down to 10. Growth Spiral. So let's say they tap out for Anissa. We're really looking for a land for this Henge, and then we can feel pretty good, even being able to kill maybe one of their lands if they turn it into a creature. They know that we have 2 Primal Mights, though. And then we just kill the Nissa, so I mean, that's obviously not a great play for them. But we've seen stranger things. Okay, gonna redraw here. Looks like they do have a kill spell for the Love Struck, I believe. Murderous Strider, so they're gonna go down to 8. And we do have removal spells. Wow, so we're actually gonna get to resolve this Coco. Yeah, I think that's what we're gonna have to do here. And we get 2 pack leaders. Put our opponent down to 7. If they tap out for this Murderous Rider, then we can just Primal Might it out of the way. Obviously still just hoping to dodge like a board wipe here. They do flip the Escanta. And Shadow's Verdict to be pretty good here for our opponent. We're still looking for a 4th land either way. It would help us get 2 threats down post Sweeper, but it looks like they do not. So they have 1 blue mana. We're just going to go ahead and try to kill Kalitas here. See if that works out for us. And it does. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we could still do this. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So yeah, let's just come in. Draw a couple cards. Do draw the land here. So unfortunately we did put our opponent at 1. That kind of puts us a little bit risky business here. Let's get this ooze down. Pass the turn back. No sweeper. So let's kind of hope for that. All right, and they went ahead and conceded that game. So pretty close there, I think. You know, they have a sweeper. We're kind of in quite a bit of trouble. Let's bring in these 2 Shifting Ceratops. Couple Heroic Interventions, the Saper Sanctuaries. Start cutting down on these Llanowar Elves. Maybe cut down an extra one here. Ooze. Not really seeing a reason that we would want it yet. It's a sizable 2 drop, excuse me, later in the game. Maybe we cut a Henge. And yeah, let's cut one more of these Llanowar Elves. I kind of like the Primal Mites. We don't know what we're up against. Maybe we just keep 2. Yeah, let's try this out. I just still like having all those protection spells against any type of control removal strategy. And not a keepable hand here. We do have to mulligan. This is actually like a bit better. Oh, but we have 2 Boseijus. Ooh, this is a little bit rough, I must say. I think that we have to go down to 5. We can keep this. This is a little bit better. Let's try this out. I like having the Coco just in case. It helps us stay in the game, essentially, from this mulligan. Okay, drawing a Heroic Intervention. Not really the card we want to see right now. We'd rather see some lands or some more cheap threats. Ooh, and we kept the Coco, but they have a Graph Digger's Cage for us. So definitely some trouble here. Just having a dead card in our hand. Essentially, it's like a 1-for-1, but ends up being a 4-for-1, depending on how many we draw these this game. You don't really want to like side them out against control either, though. Just got a little bit unlucky that they happen to have that. Okay. So we'll go and play Mammoth. Gonna come in for 3. Can play a Llanowar Elf, but then we leave ourselves susceptible to removal. I think I'm just gonna pass. It's like a little bit awkward, but I'd actually rather blank their removal spell, and even if they play Lutri, that's okay. That's most of their turn, they just tap out for it. We'd hope to hit like a Primal Might, because then we can just get it out of the way. Questing Beast, okay. It's pretty good. Gonna go down to 16. Our opponent's actually playing the beatdown strategy here on us. We draw another Mystic. We are not going to get to play this Coco. I think we just have to say go here. Still hold up this intervention. Gonna take another hit, go down to 12. I kept the Mammoth too, mostly because I want to make sure that we still have some other threats. Just gonna take the damage here. We're in a bit of an awkward situation, so I'm trying to take lines here that give us the better chance of winning the game. Kind of like helping us survive for a bit while also trying to find a point in the game where we can turn it around. But yeah, that Gargoyle's going to make it quite a bit harder here. We draw another mana creature, no removal. Can't play our Coco. I think we're actually just going to go ahead and concede here, considering that our opponent has 2 pretty sizable threats. Like the Gargoyle's pretty decent, and the Questing Beast is getting in there. So let's see here. Do we just not want any of our mana elves? Maybe we don't. Let's cut a Coco, bring in Liberators. Another Primal Might. 27, we could bring that in as a 28th, but we can't hit it off Coco. Yeah, we'll bring in a Harpooner. I feel like I'd rather have those creatures most of the time than the elves against them. Like that game, we just still had too many. We also just happened to draw most of them, considering that we had cut some of them. Yeah, we can definitely keep the sand. 1 drop into 2 drop, potentially drawing an untapped land would get us still on curve, and then even if we have to play the Mammoth on turn 3, we still have some other cards that we can play in between on turn 4. So let's go and start off with the 1/1 here. Kind of have a little bit of an aggressive start. Looking to dodge anything like a Thoughtseize or like a Fatal Push right now. That would be definitely slow us down a bit. Alright, going to deal them 1, down to 19. Have a couple decent threats on the battlefield. Looks like this Mammoth is going to come into play tapped, but yeah, there's still some hope to draw an untapped land here. And if we do, I think that we're just going to slam this Ronus down onto the battlefield, mostly because it's a threat that they're just going to have a harder time dealing with overall. Wow, we actually do draw it, so let's go to combat, see what our opponent does first. And they do have the removal, I believe. Nope, they actually don't. So here, I actually think it's almost safer to play... Could play the Love Struck, so then they almost feel like they have to kill the 1/1, but I'd actually rather just play the Steel Leaf. If they have like a Censor or something like that, that's fine. Jwari. Maybe it's looking like an Ether Gust. Okay, neither. Still could have it end step. Okay, no response here from our opponent, so we have a Pack Leader, a Steel Leaf Champion, and a 1/1 token in play. Playing this Mammoth tapped and then going for this Ronus on the following turn. If they want to interact with the Steel Leaf Champion now on their turn, then we're happy with that. Could end up having like a Murderous Rider, but they'll take damage for that on top of us attacking. And it looks like the opponent's just going to cycle for 0, so not a good look right now from our opponent here. Okay. That makes a little bit more sense with the Fatal Push there. And we have Shifting Ceratops. I think we just play the Ronus. We even have mana here. Let's just actually... I think we still play this because we can get the Ceratops into play with haste next turn. Kind of providing like lethal right now. Really just depends what our opponent does. I mean, they could have also just been potentially digging for a land. It was a little bit of a desperate move, but I mean, they have quite a lot of cards in their hand, so it could end up paying off for them. Okay, tapping for a blue, so they have Graveyard Trespasser here. And we hit a Primal Might, so I could just go for the Primal Might. Can also do it on the token, so if they want to kill the token. Or do we just go for the play with the Ceratops? Yeah. Let's do that. Let's give it haste. Smash in with the squad. Redraw a card. It's a Liberator. And our opponent's in chump block mode. If they want to trade, they go down to 1 here. Unless they have a push. But even if they did, then they can't really get rid of most of our other cards. And still looking pretty good. I mean, they could have a board wipe for us here, which should be unfortunate. But they didn't have one the game before, and they don't have one now. So went ahead and took that match down. Pizza people, are you enjoying the content? Don't forget, subscribe to the channel. It's free. Hit that bell icon as well. That way, anytime any of our new content comes out, you're able to see it right away. Hey, leave a comment down below as well. Tell us what you're going to play in the next event, or tell us what you're enjoying about the video. Don't forget, check out the description too. We've got tons of great content down below. And on top of that, we're going to have our tournament schedule too. So get in on it. Hope to see you. Stomp, stomp, stomping away on some opponents here on the ladder. See if we can keep it up on the play as well. And a pretty good hand, if I do say so myself. So we'll go ahead and keep that. Play the Salvage Mystic on turn 1. Potentially get this Ronus down on turn 2. And then it's looking like a turn 3 Love Struck Beast and making the Ronus be able to come in for a pretty good chunk of damage here. Really just depends on what strategy our opponent's playing, because our Elvish Mystic could very well just be dead here on the following turn. And they do play a Black Source, and it looks like a Fatal Push is about to happen. So we do end up losing our... Let's see, let's make 2 1/1s instead of the Ooze. We don't want to just run into a Stomp here. Whoop. So we did end up getting our Llanowar Elvish Mystic pushed. So now it's going to be a little bit harder to kind of get through here, considering we don't have our 3rd mana. We're really just trying to get some good top decks here. It looks like we're actually up against the Golgari deck. And we do hit our 3rd land, so let's get this Ronus down. Pass a turn back. Opponent can make the Scavenging Ooze a 3/3. But then we also just have a lot of Love Struck Beasts about to happen here. Okay, Graveyard Trespasser, that's fine. Yep, we're going to take a damage. So the Ooze actually doesn't grow because they choose to do that instead. We'll play Love Struck Beast, one of many. Come in for 5. Just going to essentially try to turn these 5/5 sideways and get there. If we draw a land, we get to play the Llanowar plus the Beast, which feels pretty good because then we can play some of our other cards down as well. Can't interact with the Ronus. It's indestructible unless they have an Exile, which they could. And it's looking like a Thoughtseize, so probably the Love Struck Beast going away. It's one of our better cards. Ooze is decent, but like Fatal Push can still deal with it, and our opponent's actually just going to pack it up here. They definitely didn't like what they saw. We can bring in the Shaper Sanctuary. We only saw Fatal Push, but we know that they're more likely to play more removal spells here. Let's shave down on these Llanowar Elves. And looking at the rest of this list, we might just almost want to cut down on another Elf or bring in the Primal Mites. So yeah, let's do the Elves, bring in a Primal Mite and one of these Heroic Interventions. That way we kind of just have a little bit more removal, a little bit of some protection as well. I didn't see that much, right? Like all we saw is the Fatal Push, but it's more likely that they bring in more kill spells. Being on the play was also super helpful that game. Just having a lot of 5/5s. A lot of things just went right for us. Drew the lands we needed. This next game, I think, we're going to still try to do our game plan to beat down, but we also want to just try to get a henge down, because once we get that henge down, we're easily able to overwhelm our opponent in card advantage and just even bigger creatures for each one that we're able to play. So let's go and see what our opponent's up to here. Whether or not they brought in more removal, whether or not they actually brought in some removal for the henge as well. Going to be on the draw. Let's hope for a good opening hand here. And still just waiting a bit. And unfortunately we do have to mulligan this hand, but being on the draw does mitigate that a little bit. If this was another land, then we can definitely keep this hand. It'd be pretty solid with the Elf into the Ronus again. But I think we have to mulligan. I don't want to take a chance on just a one-lander. This is a lot better. We do have to put one of the lands back, but Pack Leader into Mammoth into potentially Collected Company feels pretty good. Hoping to dodge like a Thoughtseize here early in the game, just in case they are able to like slow us down or take like one of our better cards. So go ahead and keep this. Put a Forest back. Might also even play the Mammoth tapped. But, well, I think I'd rather just play the Forest out. Against their deck, I'm more worried about having the most amount of threats rather than casting this Collected Company on time. We already have a curve, expecting like a downfall or something here. Yep, Fatal Push. Okay, Fable Passage with the Ooze, that's fine. We have our own Ooze. Can actually eat the Pack Leader, which is the only creature in the graveyard right now. I kind of like that, actually. Let's just do that. They can't Fatal Push this Ooze right now, so We may as well take advantage of the fact that we have our ooze first. If they want to fatal push it, then that's fine. We're getting closer to our Coco next turn by playing this Mammoth tapped. Okay, Fatal Passage. You can kind of see how maybe we're like punished a little bit, but like I said, I still really like having the most creatures I can have. I mean, if we draw an untapped source, then this Coco looks really, really delicious. Okay, Fatal Push. For the ooze, we're going to go down to 19 at least, unless they pump it. Okay, they are. Could signify that they have another Fatal Push here, but no stop on their turn. So let's actually play Steel Leaf into this Mammoth tapped, and then we can get the Henge down, play the Pack Leader, start drawing cards, and maybe Coco. If they have a Thoughtseize here, they put themselves in the position of having to take one of our 2 best cards in the deck. So either one that they take, we pretty much would be left with just as much of a good, valuable card as well. And they tap out for a Tireless Tracker, so we are going to get this Henge down. No land either from our opponent, so they're not getting any value here. And we'll get a redraw. And we do hit a land. If they want to kill our Steel Leaf Champion, it's going to cost both of their creatures. They're not going to do that. I think we just play this Forest and pass it back, hoping to collect a company on our following turn here and just outvaluing our opponent. If not, we still have some pretty good size threats already on the battlefield. And if they need to kill them, then they kill them. That's fine. Like I said, we have a Coco here, which is going to be great. And our opponent potentially just going to go to the tank here. Okay. They have Vraska, which is going to kill our Steel Leaf Champion. That's fine. Completely okay with that. And maybe they kill the Pack Leader because the Pack Leader draws us more cards. Yeah, they're going for that instead. So Steel Leaf still kills both of their cards. They don't have an extra land to pump up the Scavenging Ooze. Ooh, we only hit 2 Mystics, but they are going to be 2/2s. We draw us a couple cards. That was actually just a really good draw there. I think that we just attack with the Steel Leaf and see if they double block it, because we're pretty happy about that if they do. If not, then we have Mammoth and Primal Might to kill their Scavenging Ooze, I believe is what we want to kill. Or maybe the Tracker is better because it doesn't give them any more redraws. There's only 1 creature. This would be 2 creatures. Make that a 5/5. We have Heroic Intervention. Yeah, I think we have to kill this. So let's just get rid of that. If we draw any creature off the top of our deck, we just get some more redraws. Heroic Intervention could potentially protect our cards, and if they want to uptick Vraska, they have to get rid of one of their lands, which they haven't been hitting any land drops, so they're already at a disadvantage. Essentially, they'd have to get rid of their clue, but took that match down and walked our way into Diamond. Alright, those were definitely some stompy games there. As you can see, there's definitely some games where your creatures are just really beefy. They just start to overwhelm your opponent. Collect a Company is just great. The Great Henge is also just like a card that just helps accumulate so much card advantage and also just makes all of your threats that much bigger. Ronus is just, once again, one of the best cards in the deck, and Primal Might just helps us get over the top when we need to later in the game. But overall, I had a blast with this deck. I definitely recommend it for a tournament. Speaking of tournaments, we do host 3 a month. If you don't know about that, they are all free to play. Links in the description for my content and the tournaments as well below. And I hope that you stay cheesy.